This free program is paid for by the listeners of WBAI New York. If you're not already a member, think about joining us to help keep free speech alive.
9 a.m. New York.
Here he is, comrades. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows, guaranteed to destroy any weapons of mass deception.
I'm back. You're listening to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, on WBAI, New York, tri-state area.
People of America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, unlike me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
Yes, you're listening to the mother of all talk shows. My telephone number, as always, is 212-209-2900. I missed you last week. I hope that you missed me. Let's make up for it. You can call me 212-209-2900 about anything that you like. But here's what's on my mind. This morning, the Mubaraks are in jail. Yes, let me run that one past you again. The Mubarak family, who bestrode Egypt like a, tin pot colossus, at least, for 30 years, are now in prison. Only for 15 days at the moment, but it may well turn out to be much longer than that. They're charged, of course, not just with the malfeasance of office, not just with the grand larceny of tens of billions of dollars of the country's money, much of it given by your taxes, by the way, but with the murder, cold-blooded murder, of 800 democracy demonstrators before the old tyrant was finally removed. What should happen to the Mubaraks now? That's one of the questions I'm asking today. 212-209-2900. What do we do with fallen tyrants? There was the one in the Ivory Coast in the week, pictured in his vest and his night attire as the French forces, don't be fooled that they were Ivorian opposition forces, these were French commandos who burst in on his lair and captured him and subjected him to the indignities of an underwear parade on international television. There are some times when you just have to deal with tyrants, you have to negotiate with them, and that's what ought to be happening in Libya, in my view. The African Union have called for a ceasefire. Gaddafi, the tyrant, has agreed to one, but the revolutionaries, who are entirely dependent on US and French and British air power and are now asking for $1.5 billion of our tax money to keep them going in the interim, have refused any parley. I think myself that that's a mistake. Talking of France, the little Napoleon Sarkozy, with an election ahead of him, has banned the niqab. That's the tiny little piece of cloth that some, very small number, of European Muslim women wear across the lower half of their face. I always thought that liberté, égalité, and the whole panoply of French equality was in much, I would have thought, in anyone's mind. It must contain the right to wear exactly what you want. Could never happen in the United States, could it? I don't think it could happen in Britain, but we'll be talking about that also today. Should the state instruct women what they should and shouldn't wear? 212-209-2900. And at Oxford University, one of the world's very greatest, the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, is in the doghouse after he pointed out, marginally erroneously as it turned out, that Oxford University had admitted only a single black student in the whole of 2009. Actually, the number was 23, but if he had said that they had admitted only one black Caribbean student in the whole of 2009, he would have been absolutely right. How does that compare with the great universities of the United States? At Harvard, I see 12.1% of students are African American, and I think Latinos are also a very similar figure. So, Let's talk about admissions policies at the great universities. 212-209-2900. And Musa Kusa, crazy name, crazy guy. He's the guy who was Colonel Gaddafi's foreign minister, and he defected to the United Kingdom. Or did he? Because when the Scottish police closed in order to get to grips with him and try and get to grips with the truth over the Lockerbie bombing and the subsequent disaster and the loss of the lives of hundreds of people, most of them American, but many of them Scottish, he decided that he was taking off, and the British government allowed him to. Suspicious or what? And you may see on the internet, if not in the mainstream media, over the course of the next 24 hours, I'm suing the government of Canada for $1.5 million. And guess what? I'm going to win. It's George Galloway. It's the mother of all talk shows, and my number is 212-209-2900. Now, as always, but for the help of the fabulous Aoife, there would be no show at all. She's handling the telephone calls in New York. I'm talking to you from a rainy London town with April showers filling the air. Aoife, have we any calls?
Yes, you do. You have Justin from Brooklyn up.
Excellent. Justin in Brooklyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for taking my call. What do we do with tyrants? I would suggest just obviously taking away all their money, their family's wealth, and just letting them live amongst the poor.
Well, that's a pretty good prescription. I don't know if the Mubaraks would last very long down amongst the poor in the huge ghettos of millions of illiterate and unhealthy people who have been living through this 30-year dictatorship on, at its close, less than $1.50 a day. Half of the Egyptian people, that means 40 million Egyptians, were living on less than $1.50 a day. So they'd probably be lynched, Justin.
Yep. Well, at least it would be some sort of civil justice.
Well, that's definitely a point of view. It's not one filled with Christian charity, but it might well be a popular one. Justin, thanks for the call, my friend. Let's see what other listeners think. Aoife, give me another one, please.
Sandy from Brooklyn.
Sandy in Brooklyn. We're doing well in Brooklyn this morning. Sandy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. And I know you're running for the Scottish Parliament on May 5th.
I am, yes. I've come down to London just for a day so that I can broadcast to you, but I am running in the great city of Glasgow, where in some parts of the city, Sandy, the life expectancy for men is 57 years old. That is lower than the life expectancy average in most parts of the former British Empire. How about that then?
And what is your platform? I'm especially interested in what you think of the issue of Scottish independence.
I'm against Scottish independence. In general, I'm against countries breaking up. I'm certainly against small countries breaking up, especially a country, an island, on which everybody speaks the same language, has the same culture, watches the same TV, works for the same employer, members of the same trade unions, and following the same religion, by and large. I think it's a big mistake to break up countries unless you really need to.
I'm struck in the Scottish Nationalist Party is the largest party in Scotland.
Well, it's not the largest party, but it is in power in a minority government, yeah.
It looks to me, I'm no expert on Scotland, I've only read one book, it looks an awful lot to me like the Tory party.
The Scottish National Party, well, it's financially backed by very, very rich capitalists. One in particular, a man named Souter, who owns a bus company called Stagecoach, who in the last decade was the bankroller of a really deeply homophobic campaign. I understand he does have buses in the United States. Is Stagecoach in the United States?
Oh, yes.
Well, Brian Souter, who owns it all, he is the main funder of the Scottish National Party. You see, that's another reason why I don't want to see Scottish independence, because breaking up a small country, dooming, as you would given the electoral arithmetic, England to perpetual Conservative Party rule, in order that we could have our own little capitalist Scotland, Well, that doesn't sound very attractive to me, Sandy.
No.
Thank you. Thank you for your call. Ife, give me one more before we take a brief break.
Okay, you have Hassan from Long Island.
Long Island. My mind is drifting to Long Island from rainy London here. Please.
Yeah. Good morning, George. You are one of my favorite.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and you are in our hearts as a Middle Eastern.
Thank you. Where are you from? Where are you from originally?
I'm from Alexandria, Egypt.
Mobruk, Habibi, Mobruk.
Allah Barak Feek. And all my family were in the streets. And regarding Mubarak, I want to say one thing. Any revolution in the history has its own court. I'm against the civil law to be used in this case, because civil law is going to go to the tricks of the lawyers, the limbo of the laws. This family, as long as they are alive, they are dangerous in Egypt, and they very big dangers on the revolution itself. And we are suffering now from the thugs and the criminal who released them from jails, and the people still getting killed in the street by the hands of these people. So I think he should be tried in the Tahrir Square, all the family, to be an example for anyone or any tyrant in Egypt and outside Egypt.
Well, it's a very powerful case that you make, and of course I know all about these thugs. As you know, I'm sure, but maybe some of the listeners don't know, I'm persona non grata in Egypt. I was deported from the country by the Mubarak thugs, and I would be the first to back you up in your description of this family and the criminals who surrounded it. But I got to tell you that I'm against executions. I'm against the death penalty. I think that we ought to be bigger and better than them. The death penalty is the kind of thing that they carry out. Me, as a believer, I believe the only person who is entitled to take life is God himself. But let me ask you this. Would you be prepared to pull the trigger in the firing squad?
Bobby, can you say this again?
If Mubarak was on trial in Tahrir Square and he was sentenced to death, would you pull the trigger?
I pulled the trigger without even thinking twice. This guy is... I know people, he killed them. I know people disappeared from our life. I know people... I'm here in another country. I left my land, which is the love of my heart, for years because I was a student in engineering school, and I have a cut of my head that is 1985. It's just only 4 years after he took office. So this guy is fired from day one.
Of course. And his predecessor was a tyrant. Sadat was a tyrant and a traitor, so there's no doubt that there's been a long night of dictatorship in Egypt.
Yeah,
but I think
and this treatment with Sadat made with Israel, that's a disgrace.
Indeed, that's what I'm saying. He betrayed everybody. But I just think the new dawn in Egypt should begin without the blood of executions, however grim these tyrants. I've got a better solution, brother. Here's my solution. Let's lock Mubarak up with Tony Blair and George W. Bush in a small cell for the rest of their lives. Now that's a real punishment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that call. Okay. Tell me what you think. 212-209-2900.
My fellow Americans, you can misunderestimate me if you will, but do not misunderestimate Mr. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. It always has controversial ideas and sometimes very big words like disambiguation. I got it
right. George W. Bush. Let's lock him up with Hosni Mubarak and that Tony Blair. Oh, what a sell that would be. I would like to be a fly on that wall. 212-209-2900. Ife, give me the next call, please.
You have Lincoln from Mount Vernon.
Lincoln in Mount Vernon, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you again?
Very well. I'm in good form. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, actually, you just kind of eclipsed me to a degree, because I was about to make a statement, and then you mentioned George Bush. Because I was about to say that we have to be very careful about language and oversimplifying things, like in America and England and etc. We love to talk about these thugs. And I see the American government as a collective thug because I see the American government like the mafia. The family of the mafia lives well because of the exploits of the mafia. And likewise, the people of the United States live well because of the exploits of the United States government. Right now, we have a man who has sold himself to the devil, Obama. He does the dirt.
Oh, that's a bit harsh. You've gone a bit far there, Lincoln, no?
Pardon?
I think you've gone a bit too far there. That's a bit harsh.
No. I mean, a conversation, I have a right to an opinion, and if we had time, I could show you a history, even the invasion, when he was afraid to critique Israel when Israel used white phosphorus on the Palestinians.
Well, he wasn't the president. He wasn't the president then.
No, but while he was, when it occurred, his response was, there's only one president at the time, but at the same time, he was critiquing other things. He was critiquing a lot of other things. And so it was out of fear. And so it's not being harsh. I don't know why we are afraid to critique these people who lie to us.
No. I'm not afraid to critique President Obama, and I regularly,
selectively critique them.
No, Lincoln, I regularly do, and in strong terms. But we have to, I think, have some sense of perspective. Obama is not the devil. We had the devil.
No, I didn't say he was the devil. I said he has sold his soul out to the devil. That's what I said.
Well, it's kind of similar, a bit semantic.
No, it's not the same thing. It's like saying I'm the hitman for the mafia.
Well, yeah, you're saying he's not the mafia don, but he's sold his soul to the mafia don. That's the thesis that you're advancing. Okay, maybe everybody else agrees with you. I just think it's going a bit too far myself. 212-209-2900. Aoife, have we got another one?
Yes, you do. You have Hamadama from Long Island.
Long Island again. I'm having great thoughts about Long Island today. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. We missed you last week.
Yes, I missed it too, actually. I felt lost on the Wednesday morning. Anyway, I'm back, and tell everyone that you know I'm back every Wednesday morning.
I will, and we listen to you every single Wednesday.
Thank you, sir.
So, now, Mr. Galloway, your nephew, Obama, I think he is a cold, calculated tyrant. What are you going to do to set him up straight? I am from Sub-Saharan Africa, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that President Obama has been a disappointment. I think that he has done some things that are extremely bad. The death this morning of 6 more Pakistanis killed by drones sent by President Obama. This is a very big crime. And moreover, it's digging the United States deeper and deeper into a hole in the Muslim world. It's over-identification with Israel. Its role in attacking and occupying Muslim countries. It's propping up of tyrants in Muslim countries. These are all very big strategic mistakes by the United States. But they were never going to be solved overnight. They were never going to be successfully withdrawn from overnight. So the way I put it is this. President Obama has been a big disappointment, and he's done some very bad things. But he's much, much better than a President John McCain would have been, and he's a much, much better president than President George W. Bush ever was. That's the perspective, if you like, that I'm trying to maintain from this side of the Atlantic.
Yes, but if you don't do anything, then you may end up becoming like Bush and McCain.
Well, there's a danger that he is going to lose the presidency. I think he'll probably get a second term because of the paucity of talent on the Republican side. I don't think they have a serious presidential candidate, although that could change. As you know, as Harold Wilson, the former Prime Minister of Britain, once said, a week is a long time in politics, and there's plenty of weeks between now and the presidential election. But there's a real danger that President Obama will not get a second term. There's a much bigger danger that he'll serve 2 terms and not really have made all that much difference.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yep. Thanks for the call. 212-209-2900, Ife.
Yes, you have John from Inglewood, New Jersey.
Hi, John, and good morning, New Jersey.
Good morning, George.
Good morning.
You are a hero of mine.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I did, in fact, go to your speech at the Cultural Center a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yes, in New York. Yes, it was a very nice night.
Absolutely. But I do have a bone to pick with you.
Go ahead, sir. That's what I'm here for.
Basically, my opinion is that anyone who doesn't give any credence to the possibility of 9/11 being an inside job has dropped a few notches in my opinion of them. Now, well, I'm wondering if this is because...
You develop your point, then I'll answer it.
I'm wondering if you said that because, not unlike myself, who has been labeled a cuckoo for having those beliefs, you don't want to come out and say that there should be a proper investigation of that whole disaster, and be just ignored like everyone else who does.
Well, let me answer that point first, because that's easy. You obviously don't know me at all, because if I believed something, there is no power on earth that could stop me saying it. I have taken some very, very controversial stands in my life and continue to do so, and I bear the scars of having done so. So if I believed that George W. Bush brought down the Twin Towers and murdered thousands of citizens of the United States, including hundreds of citizens of the United Kingdom, in which I sit, believe me, I would tell you. So it's not that I'm a part of the conspiracy, and it's not that I'm afraid. It's that I am absolutely unpersuaded that the President of the United States carried out this crime. Not because I think that morally he is above carrying out such a crime. After all, President Bush killed far more than the people who died in the Twin Towers. President Bush and Tony Blair responsible for the killing, I would argue the murdering, of 1 million people in Iraq and many tens, scores of thousands of others around the world. So I'm not saying that President Bush is morally incapable of such an outrage. I'm saying that the risk to the political system in the United States, the risk to his political party, the Republican Party, is so Everestian, so unimaginably large, that for the gain, if any, that the right wing got from the events of 9/11, it simply would not be worth the candle. Because the likelihood of being caught, of being found out, of the truth coming out eventually, is in a country like the United States, where secrecy is very difficult, much more difficult than it is in the United Kingdom, it's virtually impossible that this secret, which would have to be known to a large number of people, could be kept indefinitely. And if what you're saying is true, became publicly known, the entire political system of the United States of America would be brought down, because the credibility and integrity of the whole political system would be shot through. So, I'm in favor, contrary to what you say, of a fuller investigation into the events of 9/11. I said the last time I was here, a week past Wednesday, that there are many unanswered questions about 9/11. And I don't think that the official inquiry dealt with them, and I think it left as many questions as it answered. So I'm with you for a fuller investigation. But I don't believe that the government of the United States committed this crime. And I don't believe that the government of the United States killed thousands of its own citizens in order to provide it with a casus belli to go to war with Muslim countries that they could very easily have done with a much smaller provocation, or indeed without any provocation at all. 219-209-2900.
Hello, Tony Blair here, just dashing off to pick up a cheque and sort out the Middle East problem. But I thought I'd just give a quick plug to the special relationship between me and George Galloway. I can't stand the man.
The feeling's mutual, Mr. Blair. Just popping over to the Middle East to pick up a cheque. He really is. I don't mean to be rude, but he's on 5 cheques a night. I mean, he is doing extremely well out of the war. One of those hard-faced men who did well out of the war. 212-209-2900. Let's see what Ife has for me now.
You have a Hutch from Wayne, New Jersey.
Excellent. Go ahead, Hutch.
Hello there. The mighty Garden State smiles upon the great Galloway.
Thank you very much. I love New Jersey, by the way.
Well,
if I can ever afford it, I'm going to live in Hoboken and look across at Manhattan. It's the greatest view in the world.
Absolutely. Stunning. You're so right. My son goes to school there.
Oh, wow. Okay, keep an eye on the property market for me.
The property market in Hoboken is tough. It's like Manhattan now.
Tough for buyers or sellers?
For buyers.
Okay.
Well, listen, George, I'm delighted to share some sound with you. About 20 years ago, I produced on WBAI and over NPR a 3-hour broadcast called Philip Agee on the CIA and covert action. It was a toll-free national call, and it was a great experience.
I knew Philip Agee quite well, actually.
Well, I know. That's why I mention him.
Okay.
And Phil, with an excellent young organizer, published a small booklet on COINTELPRO against progressive and left-wing organizations in the States. Something which, whenever I speak to youngsters, I say this is required reading. Because, as Abby Hoffman said, there were so many dedicated young people who got burnt out struggling against the powers that be, not because of the powers that be. They were ready to handle the clubs and the viciousness of the other side and what they would do. They were prepared for all of that. What they were not prepared for was the infighting and the rumor mongering on the left. And so
that's quite common on this side of the pond too, Hutch, I must say.
Oh, of course. And so what I'm getting at, George, is this. And, God, I really dearly wish I could share the mic with you sometime, because this is a topic that really needs, in very strong terms, to be explored and got into, because there are so many people who are ostracized and put on the outside of the effort for no good reason other than gossip and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm getting at precisely is I'm a big fan of Noam Chomsky. I love the man dearly. And now I read about this fellow named John Coleman, who claims he was involved in MI6. And,
I don't know about this.
He's apparently quite popular in the conspiratorial book league.
Really?
And he claims that Chomsky, no less, is like a deep cover guy for the company.
My goodness, he's very deep undercover then, because he's inflicted strategic damage on the United States imperialism over the years, if you ask me. Listen, Hutch, write to me, will you, office@georgegalloway.com. And if you have anything to send me, send it to WBAI down on Wall Street there, and I'll see it the next time I'm over.
All right, I shall, and thank you so much for your time.
It's been great talking to you. You've got a great radio voice, I must say. Thanks very much indeed.
I'm Scottish. What can I say?
Yeah, well, good man. 212-209-2900. Ife, next one, please.
You have Winston from Brooklyn.
Hi, Winston.
Hello.
Very famous name. Were you named after the great man?
Hello.
Yes, Winston.
Actually, this is not Winston. I'm sorry.
George, I spoke to you on your first program, and you seem to set me correct after you listen to me very attentively, and I love you. Don't get me wrong. I'm on your side.
Okay.
And to answer your question as to the treatment, they have to be brought before these billionaire dictators all throughout the world have to be brought before not one but many courts of law, so that they're judged by juries who are sworn to be non-biased. But of course, the evidence would perhaps be considered a bias when it's produced.
Well, it's usually completely undeniable, irrefutable evidence, isn't it?
Yes, but I mean, the point is it must be all put forth. Now, the thing is, I'm calling you not just to say hello again and wish you well and wonder how you stay alive, but to say that on WBAI I have had, and this is a freedom of speech station, I have had my freedom of speech denied mercilessly in public on the airwaves, and even Amy Goodman, when she talked about her book Static down at Barnes & Noble at Union Square when she had a book signing, I went on the stage and I questioned how she could do what she does in terms of not giving any press to WBAI or the Pacifica Foundation. And this is a seat of democracy in terms of people. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Hey,
and
by the
way,
I'm trying to make is I have challenged Amy Goodman. I have asked her to interview me. I have given her papers about my case and cases just last Wednesday on Earthwatch, which you can go to the WBAI.
I will. I will. And you've been on twice on my show, and I've only been on 3 weeks, so you're doing quite well on freedom of speech here on the mother of all talk shows. Thanks very much indeed. Of course, I cannot comment on any criticism of Amy Goodman. Saint Amy is beyond my reach, or indeed beyond the reach of any of us earthly mortals. A big up to Amy Goodman. 212-209-2900. Ife, give me one more.
Alan from New Jersey.
Alan in New Jersey, welcome to the show.
Hello, Mr. Judge Galloway. How are you? It's the first time
very
well. It's the first time I listened to you, but I actually called you, but I wanted to ask you a question.
Go on.
About what's going on in Egypt right now, the falling of the tyranny.
Yes.
You know, what will happen in Egypt now? Does that mean that as the tyranny falls and they want a new democracy system, does that mean that they're going to allow freedom of religion in Egypt now, and as they said, new government?
Well, there's going to be an election in September. They've already voted in a referendum for a new constitution, which is an admirable constitution. I fully support it. And there will be, I hope, a free and fair election in September. But, of course, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. And the army junta, which is holding the reins of power for the moment, has to be watched very, very closely. And indeed, there have been troubles in Tahrir Square over the last couple of days as people seek to hurry the process along. I think there will be a free and fair election in Egypt, and I think that the biggest party which will emerge is the Muslim Brotherhood, the Ikhwan Muslimin in Arabic, and you'll have to get used to that phrase, I think, because I think that's the coming power, not just in Egypt, but in the free elections that will take place in Tunisia and in any other Arabic countries that are freed in this great wave of revolutions. I think the Muslim Brotherhood will win the subsequent elections. And I don't think that we have anything to fear from that. I think the best comparator to the Muslim Brotherhood in the Arab world would be the government of Erdogan.
Hello? Hello? Oh, I lost you, Mr. George. Thank you anyways, if you're listening to me, Mr. George. God bless you. Mr. George.
This is the President of the United States. Yes, I promised you change. Change you could believe in. Well, here it is. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows.
Wednesday night at midnight, a special broadcast.
Lublin, Poland, 1797. A family of Jewish women musicians struggles for survival and learns that music and love have a power greater than all of them. I'm Ellen Kushner. Join me for The Witches of Lublin, a musical audio drama starring Tova Feldschuh.
After the drama, host Jim Freund will be joined by writer Ellen Kushner and cast member Timothy Jerome. That's this Wednesday night at midnight here over WBAI, New York.
Daughters and mothers, a powerful, sometimes painful relationship. What lessons and legacies are shared and passed down from mother to daughter? Major life lessons, untreated trauma. What would you share? What lessons did you learn? What did you have to unlearn? 2 hours, one powerhouse panel. Join Stacey Ann Chin, Stacey Patton, Asha Bandele, Deanne Brooks in Lessons and Legacies, Daughters and Mothers, a provocative conversation moderated by me, Esther Armah, on Monday, April 25th, 7 p.m., Manhattan's The Brecht Forum. Call 212-209-2812 for more info. That's 212-209-2812. This is the Emotional Justice Movement.
President Roosevelt speaking in Madison Square Garden.
In 1936, of those who despaired, young men, young women, businessmen whose books were disaster, homeowners who are faced with eviction, citizens whose savings were insecure, countless other Americans of all parties and all faiths said, we will change it. Our nation was afflicted with hear nothing, see nothing, do nothing government. The nation looked to that government, but that government looked away. And my friends, powerful influences strive today to restore that kind of government with its doctrine that that government is best, which is most indifferent to mankind.
Telling it like it is.
With Stephen the Road Warrior.
This and alternating Mondays, 3 to 5 a.m.
On 99.5 on the FM dial in New York.
The station with food for the mind, body, and soul.
When utilities tell you solar power is not possible yet, don't believe them. It's really the only way to go. On Tuesday evening, April 19th, top solar expert Richard Perez will tell you that we can get most of our electricity from the sun right now. Listen to Ecologic with Ken Gale and Dr. Richard Perez, Tuesday, April 19th at 8 p.m. here on WBAI, New York City, 99.5 FM and WBAI.org.
WBAI is having a book fair. Don't miss all the fun and savings galore. Come Wednesday, April 20th through Sunday, April 24th. Wednesday to Friday from 3 to 7 and Saturday and Sunday from noon to 6. Come to 120 Wall Street, 10th floor. You must RSVP by phone 212-209-2800 between the hours of 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come to our book fair. See you there.
Dear listeners, this is Indra Hardat. There's a great way to support your favorite community radio station, WBAI, and save on your taxes. You can donate your car, your truck, or your motorhome. We'll come pick up your vehicle for free and give you a receipt for your tax donation. It's easy. Just call our representative to find out if your vehicle qualifies at 866-WBAI-CAR. Again, that's 866-WBAI-CAR. Thank you for your continued support.
If you were following WBAI on Twitter, you would have known about George Galloway's debut on the airwaves as it happened. You would have known that Radio Free Erin was broadcasting live from Percy's Tavern on Avenue A and that you could be there in person as it happened. You would have known about a special Escaped from the Bronx Zoo covert guest that was scheduled to be on 5 O'Clock Shadow until things got changed, but you should follow us on Twitter to be in the know. Twitter.com/WBAI_radio.
This is a special announcement from the mother of all talk shows and George Galloway.
Well, thank you for staying tuned. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if we were sabotaged or whether someone just dropped the ball, either over there in New York or here in London. But I apologize and thank you for staying tuned. This is George Galloway. My phone number is 212-209-2900. We're talking about the Mubaraks in jail, what should happen to them, what should happen to tyrants in general. Is there a case sometimes for making a deal to ease their passage out of office? I would say there probably is. One such case would definitely be Gaddafi in Libya. Gbagbo in Ivory Coast was, of course, suffering the indignity of being filmed in his underwear, in his night attire, when he was captured by French commandos just the other day. That's just in passing an interesting point. The number of foreign adventures in which little Sarkozy, the latter-day Napoleon, is now embarked upon. French muscularity has grown exponentially since this dwarf took power in the Élysée. And what about the niqab, where Sarkozy is beating up Muslim women, metaphorically speaking, in order to grab some dirty right-wing votes for his apparently doomed second term? And what about Oxford University, where, as the British Prime Minister pointed out, although he didn't actually state it entirely correctly, only one black Caribbean student at Oxford University was admitted to the university in the entirety of 2009. Shameful, or what? How does that compare with US universities? Anyway, hit the phones, Jack and Jacqueline, 212-209-2900. Ife, do we have any calls?
Yes, you have another Sandy from Brooklyn.
Okay, Sandy, popular name this morning. Welcome.
Hello, Mr. Galloway. How are you?
Very well indeed. The better for hearing from a woman caller. Go ahead.
I love you, first of all.
Thank you, my dear.
The gentleman who called earlier, who spoke about 9/11, he preempted me.
Ah, yes.
I would love to know, I heard you say before that you love to speak with people with whom you disagree.
Yes, of course.
And I wondered if you listen to other programs on WBAI, like Guns and Butter, for instance.
I don't, because I'm generally busy, but I hope to catch up on that one sometime soon.
Good, because last Friday, April 8th, on Guns and Butter, which airs 9 a.m. on WBAI, Bonnie Faulkner, the producer, she had Dr. David Ray Griffin on, who was speaking about 9/11. And I'd love for you to listen to that
I'll make a point of doing that once I get my election out of the way.
Okay, because I think after you listen to that program, you'll feel differently about 9/11.
So what are you saying, Sandy, that George Bush blew up the Twin Towers and murdered 3,000 American and other citizens?
I think the shadow government did, yes. And I don't think it's far-fetched to think that it's, I don't think it's something far-fetched.
Let me ask you why then. Why would they do that?
To get the to have a good reason to invade Iraq, because the public wasn't behind it.
But they
and it was on the tables for a long time. It was a part of their whole,
Indeed. No, indeed, there's no doubt that the events of 9/11 helped the war party to attack various Muslim countries.
Yes.
But they could have created the conditions for such an attack far more cheaply in terms of lives and far less riskily in terms of the perils of this conspiracy ever being found out.
But Mr. Galloway, look how many what should I say now? The assassination of Kennedy, Martin Luther King.
Yes, but these were individuals.
No, I don't think so. I think they had a tacit cooperation of whoever was in power, and I think people who do these things can keep secrets. I don't think that is. I think your main argument for saying it couldn't happen was that too many people knew about it, and it could not have been kept a secret.
That's one of my arguments, yeah.
Yes. But I think if you listen to Dr. David Ray Griffin, who Bonnie Faulkner had on Guns and Butter, who went through...
Well, I promise you, when I get the chance, Sandy, I'll do just that. 212-209-2900. Ife, do we have another call?
Yes, we have Al from Brooklyn.
Al, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Galloway.
Good morning to
you.
you.
How are you? Great show, and I wish you future success in it.
Thanks.
My question to you is, in the past you have said that you foresaw the collapse of the puppet regimes throughout the Middle East.
Yes.
Do you also foresee the collapse of that mother of all puppet regimes, the one in Washington, D.C.? And I'll get off the phone and listen to your answer.
Well, I mean, I don't go for this shadow government and puppet regime and so on. Of course, the political leaders are not the only leaders. That in any state, especially an imperialist state, and especially the paramount imperialist state, the United States of America, there are many power centers. The military is a power center. The military-industrial complex is another. The intelligence community is another. The diplomats, the State Department, the FBI, the multinational corporations, the oligarchy. All of these are power centers, and the president, elected president, balances between all of these and is sometimes under the influence of one or more of them, and sometimes temporarily, sometimes permanently. So I'm not one of these who is naive on these points. I don't believe that the democracy of your country or mine is as good as it gets or is a perfect democracy. But I think it's entirely wrong to characterize, for example, President Obama as a puppet. I think it's entirely wrong to characterize the governance of the United States as being somehow in the hands of a shadow administration who carry out earth-shattering, earth-moving, profound acts without the political leadership being any the wiser for it. I just, myself, don't really agree with that. But thanks for your call. I do like to have an argument in the mornings. 212-209-2900. Ife, do you have another?
Yes, you have Luigi from Montclair, New Jersey.
Luigi, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Galloway. Great pleasure to talk to you, sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Galloway, 2 quick points. Yes, I agree with you that we should hasten these dictators with cash payments if that's going to, end the shedding of innocent lives. So obviously, I think it's a good thing.
Well, I think there are some cases where it's clearly the best thing to do. But yes. In the case of the Mubaraks, for example, the regime has been overthrown. The tyrant and his family are in the hands of the authorities. I think we should concentrate on getting all their money back
yes,
into the exchequer of that poor country. And if they cooperate in giving the people of Egypt their money back, money which, by the way, very likely came from your taxes.
Absolutely, and billions of dollars. Billions.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well,
it's not
something
a small
like
amount of money. Yes.
No, something like $80 billion is reputedly the family fortune. So let's get all the money back, and then put them on a slow boat somewhere. There's no reason to hang people. I think hanging people is a disgusting thing. No reason to execute people like your own government did in the state of Ohio last night, tying a man down with belts on a table and then injecting poison into his veins. This just demeans us. It degrades us, don't you think?
Yes, of course. Sir, can I make one quick point?
Go on.
About 9/11. Sir, are you aware of Operation Northwoods, sir?
Remind me.
Operation Northwoods, Mr. Galway, you can Google it. 1962, sir, it was the plan to do domestic terrorism in America as a false flag operation, then
yes.
to blame it on the Cubans.
Yes,
so
indeed I am, and indeed real terrorism was carried out against Cuba by a man who was just...
information to show 9/11 was a false flag, comparable to Operation Northwoods or the Bay of
course
or sinking of the Maine.
Yeah.
So, the U.S. has a long history of this.
There is a long history, but this would be a false flag operation. This would be the mother of all false flag operations, and one which is completely over the top, completely unnecessary. The provocation that would have been required to permit Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld and so to go and attack Muslim countries needn't have been anything like as expensive in human life and as monumentally risky as blowing up the iconic towers in the heart of New York City. But we'll just have to agree to disagree on that. And let me just make this point. If you want to talk about 9/11, tell me that you want to talk about 9/11. Don't pretend that you've come on to speak about one thing, but in fact, you're trying to smuggle in something else. There's really no need for that. Ife, do we have another?
Yes, you have Mark from the Bronx.
Mark in the Bronx, welcome.
How you doing? Mr. Galloway?
I'm doing fine. Great to talk to you.
Okay, well, I strongly believe that 9/11 was an inside job.
Tell me why.
The reason why, because when you look at all the evidence that America has presented against Osama bin Laden and the Al-Qaeda, it does not add up. And we that live in New York City, we know it's an inside job because they tried to do this in 1992, and they didn't accomplish it. And the way the building was detonated is just like the way they blew up all the buildings in Las Vegas when they was trying to clean out those old casinos and bring in the new casinos. And then, I don't know if you listen to Alex Jones and, these conspiracy theories with Jesse Ventura and all these other guys, but
I didn't know. I listened to Jesse Ventura more when he was a wrestler than when he became a political pundit. Look, I don't want to repeat myself endlessly, and I know that for people in New York City this is an especially sensitive issue. But if you were going to blow up the Twin Towers, there would be no need to hijack two aeroplanes and fly them into the Twin Towers at the same time. That would be to go over the top by a very, very long way. And if you were going to fly two aeroplanes into the Twin Towers, believe me, you didn't also have to blow them up. If you wanted to create a provocation, a casus belli with the Muslim world, then the simple assassination of a convenient dupe somewhere in the American establishment would have been enough, or a small bomb somewhere, or a small hijacking somewhere. The idea that George W. Bush, who could barely write his name, who was caught reading a children's book upside down when the attack on the Twin Towers occurred, was this genius who came up with this gigantic plan, the biggest plan in all history, the biggest conspiracy in the history of the world, entirely unnecessarily, and with such peril that, I repeat myself, would have brought about the end of the political system in the United States of America itself. It's just inherently unlikely to me. Now, you may know a lot about New York, but I know a lot about Al-Qaeda. And believe me, this Salafist, jihadist, extremist trend, at the head of which stands Osama bin Laden, is a very, very dangerous, fanatic group of people. We know that they sent people into the United States to learn how to fly aeroplanes. We know that the people that went into the United States to learn how to fly aeroplanes did get on those planes. We know that those planes were hijacked, and we know that the passengers on board all perished as those two aeroplanes struck those two towers that we saw with our own eyes. So, sometimes, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, that's because it is a duck. Not always, but sometimes. Here's my case. These aeroplanes that struck the Twin Towers did not come out of a clear blue sky. They came out of the swamp of hatred and bitterness in the Muslim world against the West, your country and mine, for the many, many crimes that our countries have committed and are committing in those countries. It's not rocket science. You don't have to look for a conspiracy. It's cause and effect. Our support for the criminal rogue state of Israel, our occupation of Muslim countries, our propping up of the corrupt kings and puppet president tyrants who rule the Muslim world almost without exception from one end to the other. These are the elements which have filled that swamp with bitterness and hatred. And the only real wonder is that so few dastardly acts of terrorism have climbed out of that swamp so far. Not that those that have actually occurred in the first place. And, as Dusty Springfield said, I only want to be with you.
Like many of you, like many Americans, I have felt frustrated and betrayed by the state of the mainstream media in this country. A media whose priorities seem out of step with their responsibilities. We need a media that strengthens democracy, not a media that strengthens the government. We need a media that enriches public discourse, not one that enriches corporations. Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and this is WBAI, listener-supported, non-commercial radio in New York.
Daughters and mothers, a powerful, sometimes painful relationship. What lessons and legacies are shared and passed down from mother to daughter? Major life lessons, untreated trauma. What would you share? What lessons did you learn? What did you have to unlearn? 2 hours, one powerhouse panel. Join Stacey Ann Chin, Stacey Patton, Asha Bandele, Deanne Brooks in Lessons and Legacies, Daughters and Mothers, a provocative conversation moderated by me, Esther Armah, on Monday, April 25th, 7 p.m., Manhattan's The Brecht Forum. Call 212-209-2812 for more info. That's 212-209-2812. This is the Emotional Justice Movement.
WBAI is een niet-commerciële zender, gesponsord
Ciao,
door
sono
luisteraars.
Letizia e quando sono a New York ascolto WBAI su 99.5 FM.
Nitwa Jacqueline Murekatete, ndi umuresikapi wa jenoside y'abatutsi yabaye muri 1994 mu Rwanda. Murimo kumva
Когато съм в Нью Йорк, аз винаги слушам WBAI 98.
Mi nome é Elsa, ando sempre mi radio sintoniza na 99.5 FM WBAI.
What language do you speak when you call back home and talk to your grandmother or cousins? Join WBAI's ongoing community outreach and produce a station ID for us in your native tongue. You can contact the program coordinator, Michael G. Haskins, at WBAIannouncements@gmail.com. Let's honor each other.
Do you tweet? I said, do you tweet? Because if you tweet, you can follow WBAI on Twitter, twitter.com/WBAI_radio, and find out up-to-the-minute breaking news and what's on the air right now. And then you can follow or be followed by the other followers of WBAI. Follow WBAI on Twitter, twitter.com/WBAI_radio. Sweet.
April 20th through 24th, WBAI will hold the WBAI Book Fair on the 10th floor of 120 Wall Street. We welcome you to stop by and pick up a CD, DVD, old premium, or all three. WBAI is also looking for volunteers for the event. The fair will be open on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from noon until 6. To support WBAI and attend or volunteer for our book fair, please RSVP prior to the event. You may do so by calling 212-209-2800 during regular business hours.
Please remember that this program